Hey
guys!
guys!
Welcome to Bookish Banter, where we utilize the Socratic method to push the boundaries of conversation about the important topics of literature.
Today, we're talking about George Orwell's 1984 and some of the major themes and questions that come of it.
Specifically, we're going to be doing a character analysis on the character O'Brien and dig into Winston's unique relationship with him. First question: what could have alluded to O'Brien's affiliations, such as that he was not even a part of the Brotherhood?
For me, as soon as I was reading it, I was like, man, his life is great. Like whenever we're in his apartment, I'm like, man, he's got a butler. He can turn his TV off. He's got coffee. He's got everything. He's got wine.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, what does this guy have to benefit from being a part of the Brotherhood?
Mm-hmm. No, exactly. And I believe that goes to show that even Orwell is acknowledging that those who benefit from the system do not seek to change it.
Mm-hmm.
And so whenever we look to, say, politicians or celebrities, they're not going to be the ones that try and change the system for us. They're not the ones that are suffering because of it. We are.
And I remember whenever I was proceeding after that, it was kind of I had the sneaking suspicion and itching in the back of my head of man, I don't know. He's kind of made it farther than I thought. Maybe he is a part of the Brotherhood. I'm but then every single time it was no, O'Brien's just benefiting way too much. It just can't be, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you also have to think in this world, everyone's also sad and I want to say crumbly, but that's not the word that I'm looking for. But their stature is very small because they were malnourished as a child. But the fact that O'Brien has this huge stature means that he was not malnourished as a child and he continues to be very well nourished throughout his adulthood.
That's interesting that you bring that point up because a point that I kind of think of for Winston is whenever he's walking up the stairs at his apartment at the very beginning and they make a point of his varicose ulcer to where it's he clearly isn't a healthy individual. He's not some bulky man or something like that. And another point that I kind of thought was cool that you brought up earlier was that the Brotherhood even carries the namesake of Big Brother.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of reinforces the idea that the Brotherhood never really existed and was entirely just a fabrication to out potential martyrs.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely. Next question. They got me a long time ago. Do you think that O'Brien was actually got? Or was he always a part of the inner party? Why? And does this even matter?
Personally, I totally think that O'Brien has always been a part of the inner party from the beginning of it. I don't think there was any point that he was really a revolutionary.
Okay, so does this matter? Does it matter that he was never a part of the Brotherhood and converted to how he is today?
It definitely does, and I feel like it entirely has to do with his relationship with Winston because I feel he only ever said that because he was already beginning his messing with Winston's mind on what reality is oh, you knew that I was never a part of it and I never have been. But oh, maybe they just got me a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
You just got me at the wrong point or something like that. But I think it's just entirely just to shake the foundation of Winston's reality.
I completely agree. I feel like it was a way to almost infantilize Winston's beliefs because he's oh, they got me a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you poor thing, you think that you actually thought that? No, they had me when I was young, when I was a baby, actually. And I grew up in the inner party and became a horrible person because of it. The next question is, why does O'Brien force Winston to confess to crimes he has never done, especially when he has already agreed to crimes that would land him in the gallows alone? Does this alteration of Winston's memory truly rewrite his sense of self and of the world?
It is to get him to be able to admit that it doesn't matter what he remembers happened. The only thing that matters is what the party says happened.
Yeah, exactly. I think that goes into our next point, I believe. So a few quotes from O'Brien that he says to Winston while they're in the torture chamber are, "Does the past exist concretely in space?" And, "If we control all memories, then we control the past," which I believe goes very nicely into what you were just saying.
Mm-hmm. That the party does get to dictate that because they have the power in this situation.
Exactly. And so a further question would be like, how does the party control all the memories so that they are all the same?
They make a point that they torture anybody that has opinions that fall outside of that. Like anytime there is a martyr that, what was the thing that their torture methods have been the end to martyrdom or whatever?
Yes, by ending the ego of the would-be martyrs rather than killing them.
Exactly. Every single time somebody has a memory or states that they have a memory that falls outside of what the party wants, then they're going to correct that.
Mm-hmm.
And otherwise, everybody else who's just, happy-go-lucky and following along with whatever they say, they watch the telescreens of what's being told to them, and that's pretty much what's relevant in their life. Those are their memories, and that's what they're going to be told, and that's what they're going to talk about to their friends.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting because, like, in this world, they have the telescreens, and those telescreens are obviously being watched by thought police. Do you think that in, say, our current world, would we need people like O'Brien? Would we need thought police or inter-party members working covertly?
I sure would hope not, but...
But to continue this...
Yeah. Probably. I think that it depends on where the world goes, but...
Mm-hmm.
I could imagine a couple thought police hanging around somewhere would do a heck of a lot more work than somebody watching the telescreens.
Yes.
Because whenever you're in that world, I think about how many points that Winston makes that he's like, oh, we're in front of a telescreen right now. I'm being watched. I almost feel like the telescreens don't play as big of a role in their surveillance as the actual thought police, like the physical thought police do. So like the store or the shopkeep of the prole shop that they rented that room in, I mean, he was obviously the reason that he got caught there rather than the television being there.
Mm-hmm.
And for all of their other crimes, they confess straight to O'Brien.
Mm-hmm. So Goldstein's book was allegedly written by O'Brien and was given to Winston by O'Brien, so we can assume that this is true. But it was described by himself, O'Brien, as utter nonsense. So, there are some legitimate things said in that book. Why do you think that O'Brien used a legitimate line of logic in what is supposed to be utter nonsense?
Maybe it was to give some more validity to it, to make Winston feel more confident that it was real.
That's definitely something that crossed my mind as well, and that could definitely be it.
Mm-hmm.
Another thought that I had was that in the book, he basically describes something similar to a communist manifesto. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm.
Something similar to that. Obviously, it's very different. It talks about social classes, it talks about capitalists, it talks about the oligarchy, and it makes a lot of sense in some places, but he immediately calls it utter nonsense. Now we can assume that any line of logic that a proletariat had that aligned with this book and was being told, oh, this is utter nonsense, would now believe, oh, that's utter nonsense. I don't want to follow that line of logic anymore. So, I think that he made it make sense so that whenever you think back on it, you can be like, oh, that revolution would never work, that's utter nonsense.
I can see that being within the realm of possibility, that it was just another layer of him shaking Winston's foundation of reality.
Exactly. Because Winston was like, this is making so much sense, this is making so much sense, there's actually an oligarchy, this isn't communism. And then it's like, oh, actually, you're crazy, and none of that made sense, and if you thought it did, you're absolutely insane, and you need to be tortured until you're cured.
And it almost feels like a lot of the relationship is kind of experimental. Like, it feels like O'Brien's doing a lot of it to kind of just play around.
Mm-hmm.
There's no reason he needed to continue to torture him until he was a reformed individual. It seems like a lot of times that they would just kill them anyway. With that said, it definitely feels like the relationship wasn't one-sided. That O'Brien also had intrigue in Winston, as Winston had intrigue in O'Brien.
I completely agree. And I think it almost, this is going to sound weird, but I think that it mirrors his relationship with Julia in a way.
On the parallels between the relationship that Winston has with Julia and the relationship he has with O'Brien, I see that too, and I feel like it's totally intentional.
Mm-hmm.
And the part that really makes me feel that is that whenever Winston says that he hears O'Brien's voice in his head, Julia mirrors that, but with Winston's voice.
Mm-hmm.
And we obviously know that Julia is completely and utterly in love with Winston. I feel like it's the same for Winston with O'Brien.
I think that's kind of interesting that you found that parallel exactly, because I was thinking that the parallel of Winston hating Julia, then loving Julia, then hating Julia was the exact opposite of Winston loving O'Brien, then hating him, then loving him again.
I would almost say that he hates Julia. Like, he makes a point that he hates Julia at the beginning and end.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he ever really hates O'Brien.
That's interesting. Because you would assume that he would hate O'Brien as soon as he heard that he wasn't a part of the Brotherhood and he was there to torture him. But I guess I don't recall it ever being explicitly stated.
And I never really felt like that was the relationship. I never felt like Winston really felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
He was still trying to appease him.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason that may be.
That's true. So the true love of Winston this whole time was O'Brien, and not really Julia, because he put her in harm's way.
If he really didn't love O'Brien, like, why would he have pursued that? Why wouldn't he have just went off with his life with Julia?
Mm-hmm. Some would say that it was a selfless want, that he wanted to conduct change in society from the inside out, but I think we know that it probably wasn't that.
Well, I think that you're pretty much out of questions, but...
I mean, I could think of some. Do you want some more?
I've got a question for you.
Okay, shoot.
So, why do you think there is so much emphasis placed on Winston's loving O'Brien throughout the story?
My immediate, quick answer to that would be that O'Brien was always an extension of the thing that he wanted at the time. So at first, he represented the Brotherhood. He just knew he was a part of the Brotherhood. And then later on, after being a reformed citizen, he went on to realize, oh, I actually love Big Brother. And so O'Brien came to represent Big Brother once he was revealed to be an inner party member and not a part of the Brotherhood.
So O'Brien is always just a symbol for what Winston really loves.
Yeah, I definitely think that. And I think that in reflection of that, Julia would represent what he should love.
I like that.
Thank you. Well, I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining us for another Bookish Banter.
Well, I hope you guys liked it. I hope we were able to provoke some thoughts. If you did, then please share those down in the comments. If you liked it, hit us with a like. If you want to keep seeing more of our content, give us a subscribe, and I guess we'll see you guys later.
Go watch another
Bye.
one of our videos. Bye.
Bye.